The BDA's response to Mascot Towers. Let's have a look. Good evening, everyone. I'm Florian Heiser, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. I have my stein of coffee in hand, and I thought today we'd look at an interview that Chris Neeram from the BDA, Building Designers Association, gave to Sky News with regards to Mascot Towers. Now, I'll just bring up this portion screen here, which refers to a particular report, the Shergold Weir report. And I'm linking to a video. I've spoken about this several times, and it's going to come up more and more in more videos that we look at this topic. But I'll just leave these recommendations here because I think we'll be discussing them as we look at this footage. Because frankly, when I looked at this, I was a little, shall we say, excited that I need to make a video. So I'll bring it up here.
For more on this story, I'm joined live by Chris Neeram. He's the president of the Building Designers Association of Australia. Chris, thanks for your time today. What has to happen now?
Thank you. Well, you know, the most important thing is that everybody remains calm in a situation like...
Before I go any further, do you think I need those kind of swishy effects on my channel? You know, get Heiser Says to that Sky News level. Do you see the swish they did there? It's funny, the more I'm doing this, the more I'm noticing all the editing techniques that people do. Completely off topic, sorry guys.
Listen, I know it's very difficult, but it's really important that everyone remains calm and allow the engineers to go in and really assess the extent of the damage. And then take it from there, I guess, because you know a lot of people are wanting answers now, but they're not going to be able to get the answers. People really need to do these stringent tests and be able to then go through and provide an answer, a solution to how the building can be rectified to allow the residents to re-enter their premises.
So he's approached this with a call for calm. A call for calm. He's been given a platform. He's representing a national organisation, and his first step is a call for calm. Yeah, okay. I mean, I don't know. I guess as a YouTuber, I don't need to worry about my exposure, and you can be quite provocative, but perhaps it would be better to maybe take in a bit more of a stricter approach or raise some issues right at the beginning, because we'll see what he focuses on out of the report.
So, of course, until authorities do that, we don't know what the problem is yet. These residents need answers, so how long can they expect that process to take?
Well, that's difficult to answer. It's not for me to answer. That's up to the engineers to answer that. But all I can say is that people do need to remain calm, allow the relevant authorities to go in and assess the building, and once the assessment's made, they'll be able to then provide an answer. I know it's very, very difficult for these displaced families, but I can assure you the safety is paramount.
The correct answer would be too long, no matter how it takes. We look at Opal Tower, we look at other examples where this is happening again and again and again. It's too long. Then people are deferring to authorities, where it's very clear that the authorities have failed in their, I'd say, duty of care. You know, if they're providing regardless of what people say, if in the end the authorities have certain restrictions and are there to provide a safe environment for people to habitate, wouldn't they have a duty of care? What do you reckon?
All the people involved.
As we just heard there in that report, of course, this isn't the first incident within the past 6 months or so. We had the Opal Tower last year. So is this a widespread problem with buildings in Sydney or across the country? Do we need any changes in legislation to ensure that things like this aren't happening in the future?
It's interesting that she jumps on, calls for changes in legislation when there is significant differences in legislation around Australia. And I think it's a systematic problem. I really do.
Look, our association, the BDA, have been invited and have been speaking regularly with ministers within the government and other leading industry bodies. There is definitely change coming. A reform is definitely going to happen. I can assure you that a reform is going to happen because it actually needs to happen. We can't sit back and rest on, and remain going in the same direction we have, because, these things can, eventuate and continue. And we want to ensure that everybody is safe and that these buildings themselves are also safe. And
did he really answer the question there? He kind of said that they've been meeting with them and, changes are happening. I mean, this stuff was brought up in this report 2 years ago. So whenever the Premier in New South Wales is saying, we'll do whatever we can for the people, except they're all homeless now, and a lot of them have to go, suggested to go to the Salvation Army to get accommodation. Yeah. So, no, if you should have implemented these processes and these suggestions years ago. So, I'm just becoming too cynical, I think.
You know, perhaps what we should be doing is getting the stratas to rethink about their stratas. Have a look at, you know, instead of just getting a pest inspection done, you know, periodically, how about we get an engineer to go periodically to go and inspect these buildings to ensure the safety of the residents? So
here's another call. Another call to get periodic engineering inspections of these buildings. Now, the problem is you can't see through concrete. You can't see behind cladding. You know, these buildings are managed. They should already have, if they've got, you know, if there's a strata company managing it, if there's a, you know, building manager, they should already be doing their own inspections through the building. They should be looking for defects, for issues that need to be repaired. I've just received some photos from a gentleman who sent me some examples from the Gold Coast where, you know, there's bits of a, you know, cladding of a building hanging off the side. For the 5,000 subscriber special, guys, get your photos in. And it's been reported to the building managers. It's even reported to the QBCC, and nothing's been done. It's a health and safety risk. It's a water ingress risk. It's a property damage risk. Nothing's been done. So if you're having these engineering inspections, you know, it sounds good. It does sound good. But the problem is, unless they happen to be there at the exact moment when something is happening and they see like a crack or they identify a significant thing, how's it going to be any different to someone hearing a crack that happens now and jumping on board? How's it going to be any different to the inspections that we do now? Right now, they have to have fire inspections for the fire safety of buildings. We did an apartment building refurbishment, and we found that a lot of the fire detection equipment wasn't working when they did the renovation. They got inspected. That's a huge life safety issue there that's getting missed. So will these inspections work, or will it just be another cost on the strata occupants? And, you know, the engineers would love it. It'd be easy money. But will the liability, you know, will they just wave away all the liability? Let me know what you think about this idea in the comments, because I don't really think it's going to be a solution. I think there's fundamentally much greater problems in our building industry, and this is just going to be a Band-Aid solution.
And I guess then it comes into cost. Who would need to burden the shoulder of that cost? Is it the residents who did purchase this property in particular? Was built 10 years ago, so it's not like it's a new build.
No, look, I mean, again, that's not for me to answer who is going to cover the cost, but I think, you know, that for the costs going forward.
Who's going to cover the cost? It'll obviously be the owners of the building. It'll be the body corporates if it's a yearly thing.
I mean, for that building, I understand that there's going to be, you know, possible legal ramifications.
Why the hell are we at a point now in the 21st century where all of a sudden we need to start having yearly structural inspections of buildings? Do we have them all the time? You know, when quality mattered? Are we going back to the Roman times where we need to have, you know, because we've got no fire detection, we need to get people walking up and down the streets to check out for fires?
But they have to come down to the cause of they have to come down to see what the cause of the cracking is, whether it was building related or whether it's perhaps from other associated works in nearby properties that have caused the cracking. Nobody really knows at this stage. But, you know, going forward in future, I think it's important that they have independent bodies going through and assessing these buildings to ensure that all these buildings, you know, are structurally sound.
I think it's... someone put an interesting comment where they'd like to have two groups of engineers inspecting buildings, one appointed by a neighbour. Say you've got a development that you're putting up and you hire your own engineer, and then another engineer has to be appointed to check all the work of the first engineer. And that happens. That happens all the time. It's just good to have another pair of eyes. But they would be appointed or nominated by the neighbours of the building. What do you think about that idea? Thumbs up if you like it. Let me know in the comments. Sounds good.
In that package we played just before your interview, Gladys Berejiklian said that she is...
Good on you for pronouncing that name. Gladys Berejiklian.
going to appoint a commissioner, and there are legislative changes that are coming, and she also wants to make sure that all of those residents are assisted if and when they do get back into their homes. Does that ease your mind at all, or is there further change in this space that needs to happen?
Yes, look, there is further change. In 2017, there was an assessment made on the building industry, and a report was put out known as the Shergold report. In the report, there was 24 recommendations, for the construction industry, and recommendation number 1 was regarding practitioners, and that was registration of all practitioners. That's in engineers, architects, building designers, and so forth. And this is a real key point. To me, this is what number 1 point, or number 1 recommendation should be the number 1 point put through, because it's making these people accountable. Currently, people don't even need PI insurance to practice, and I think it's ridiculous.
So he made a good point there with regards to PI insurance, and these are the recommendations from that report. Here's my link to the report too, where I go through it all if you want to listen to it. It's a 7-part series. I don't know how many people actually have gone through all of it, but he's focusing on recommendation 1, which is registration of building practitioners. Now, my spidey sense is concerned, or whenever one of these organisations, Engineers Australia, BDA, or even the Institute of Architects, architectural bodies, push for registration of members, I see them having a significant conflict of interest, because then there'd be the body that would make money off the CPD that goes along with that registration. It'll give them greater authority, greater power, greater control, greater financial opportunities. We have registration here in Queensland. I'm registered. And I spoke yesterday where here in Queensland there's an issue where building surveyors, some of them, can get around the limitations under the registration of building professionals, because they, under the Act here in Queensland, have the ability to say someone is a nominated or appropriate person. So architects, engineers, builders, and building designers are the only people that can prepare documents suitable for building approval. That's where you go to certify. They have to stamp the drawings before you even start any construction. But you can have non-licensed people, non-registered people, not unqualified people prepare the documents, and the certifier can say, yep, they're good enough, boom. So what's the point of having the registration process when it can be circumvented? I think the issues that we need to look at are, a code of conduct for us building certifiers or surveyors, the integrity of them, because with our current procurement methods that we have, where you've got the builder here, you got a D&C relationship, and I spoke about that in another video. It didn't get many hits, where I was looking at, did D&C fail or have an impact on Opal Tower, because it was the procurement process used there. Everyone else is underneath the builder. And I'm talking everyone. I'm talking the building surveyor. I'm talking all the architect. All the subbies are under the builder as well. Normally the architect sits over here and you check the work of the builder, particularly during construction. So to me, that presents a tremendous conflict of interest, particularly with the building surveyor or certifier. Even if you are professional, it presents a conflict of interest. I'm not confident that this push for registration of building practitioners will be the solution that everyone hopes. I'd say it will. Ensuring people have professional indemnity insurance will provide a level of protection for purchasers, but it's not going to be the solution that they're all pushing forward.
Consumer need to be confident in the sector, and to do this we need to make sure that we have people accountable for their actions.
I think accountability is the big thing here, as you say, because now we're all talking about compensation for these.
Well, it kind of goes out the window if it's all done by a developer or building company that's just a Phoenix one or whatever, that you run for one development and then burn. Then all go, it's pointless. It's all point. You can have as many registered building practitioners as you want.
Residents, and at the moment, if you buy a product from a store and you take it home and it's faulty, you get a refund. But how do you know that you're getting what you've paid for when you're buying something off the plan? I guess having that accountability and having that registration would try and alleviate any of those problems in the future. Okay,
she doesn't understand what she's talking about here. She's a reporter. Having registered professionals won't alleviate the risk from a consumer buying off the plan. When you buy off the plan, the developers are very smart in the contracts they get you to sign and what you're actually buying. There have been cases where they've had sunset clauses where they could pretty much get out of you buying it and sell it again at a higher price, because if the market has shifted in the time the development moved forward. You're not buying a full construction set of documents. You're only buying a nominal portion of the building, so there can be changes that you may not be aware of. Even the size of what you're buying may change. You may not be aware of. How they're measuring it may change. So there's in some ways you're taking a big gamble buying off the plan. And I don't think, this solution of registering professionals will actually affect that. I think it's got more to do with our procurement processes, more to do with conflict of interest just embedded in our current industry. And his response it's concerning. Listen to this.
Yeah, look, that would make a massive, massive difference to the construction industry alone, and that's just one of 24 points.
So it'll make a mess. He doesn't even address it. He's not responding to it directly. He's just, pushing his registration point, which I understand. It'll be better for his organisation, be able to knock out some competition.
Recommendations. The other thing is that we have to look at when people are purchasing a property, when you've got a high-rise or you've got a residential home, they fall under different warranties. So, people need to be stringent and really do their research about the warranty and how they're covered before purchasing a building.
Well, yeah, he's made a very good point there with regard to the warranty. And there really is an element of difference between a normal detached dwelling and an apartment dwelling. But I honestly don't think our consumers appreciate what they're actually getting into. I don't think they appreciate what they're getting into. They should be asking, if they're looking at this, they should be asking, who was the clerk of works on this project? What was the procurement process? What construction contract did you use? How long is the defects liability period? How many defects were found? But if you're buying off the plan, you can't ask any of those questions. People trust. People trust. They look at the glossy brochures, they look at the glossy marketing, and they trust. And I guess I've become cynical just by working in this industry, and I haven't had many dealings with developers, but all of them I've had have been very unpleasant. And I've worked in D&C projects, which some of them can go fantastically well, really good. But the problem comes where you're working for, the builder or the managing contractor, and then you disagree with them. Go, well, no, I don't like that approach. That's not legal. It's going to cause issues in the future. I'm not going to draw that. What do you think happens then? As someone who's occupying a public building that was built under a process like that, what would you prefer? What would you expect to happen? Particularly if it was government money. So yeah, that's how, as a small business, you can lose a lot of work from particular clients. And the government project gets a suboptimal solution. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think all about this. We'll have a look here at some of the other elements from the Shergold report. Consistent requirements for registration. Yes, okay, good. I guess having a registration of them will have some benefit. I don't think it'll be as significant as people hope. I think there's some fundamental issues in the way we build these buildings. Continuing professional development. Yeah, I just see that as a money-making scheme, to be honest. I really do. Honestly, I could probably get CPD points for what I'm doing here, for this educational material I'm providing and my ranting on my channels. Career paths for building surveyors. Yeah, that's a challenging profession, and the biggest issue is we're running out of building certifiers or surveyors. The average age is old. They're all men. Oh, there are some women getting into it, but it's hard to get in there. I think Rachel would be a fantastic building certifier if she had known it existed. Improved collaboration between regulators. Yep. Effective regulatory powers. Yes. I've made complaints to QBCC about people doing illegal work. Nothing happens. And what's the point? I had a friend who had a house and the builder went bust, and he had his home insurance with the QBCC. they didn't pay anything. So, strategy for the proactive regulation of commercial buildings, they need that. Collaboration with fire authorities in the development of fire safety design. Yes, that can be quite challenging. There can be different advice coming from different parties, and it can be a nightmare. We talked about certifiers, the role of building surveyors or certifiers in enforcement. Yes, that's really important because they've got responsibilities to ensure things are actually achieved. Now, if you've got the challenge of putting your foot down and potentially destroying a relationship because you're not a team player, and being able to sleep at night, or just, she'll be right, it's only a little thing. It's a challenging position. This is why I'm leading more and more to, as much as I hate to say it, maybe a 2-certifier system. You have a private certifier and then a publicly nominated one on every project that have to reach a consensus. I don't know. Just putting ideas out there. Sharing data and intelligence. Yeah, it's just terrible how little data they have. The responsibility of design practitioners. Yes, here's the issue. You can put as much responsibility as you want, but if you've got no authority, what does it matter? What does it matter? That's where I've gotten frustrated in the past, where you've got all this responsibility dumped on you. The money you're getting is nowhere near sufficient to actually spend the time to do it properly. You do it properly and you lose money on jobs, but because you still have this responsibility. There's a disconnect. As an architectural professional, there is a disconnect between the amount of money, the remuneration I can achieve, the amount I can charge for fees, and the risk and liability I'm taking on. I had a job recently where I put a tender in for a Queensland government job. This was a school extension. I spoke to some engineers. It was a tender. I was invited to put one in. And I looked at all just the paperwork and garbage that the project manager wanted me to do, all these risk assessments and everything, just for the tender. And I've just started my PMI BOC. And I thought, well, no, this isn't my job. This is your job. You're the project manager. You're meant to do this. And so I put a tender together very half-heartedly because I'd actually spoken to my engineer and he said, oh, yeah, we've submitted on these jobs before. This is what the average fees are. And I looked at it and I'd be taking on all the engineers underneath me. So I'm taking on all that risk and I'd probably be able to charge $100,000 for that job, which sounds like a lot. But my documentation and everything would probably be between, $80,000 profit. And this would be months of work and I need a few people on it. So, and I'm taking on the risk of all the other consultants, which is another $500,000, and plus all their insurance liability. So if they bugger up, have to sue through me. So I was really disheartened, to be honest, because it's not worth it. The risk-reward ratio just sucks. It really sucks. And that's where, where they're saying the responsibility of design practitioners. I mean, yeah, whoop-de-doo. The thing is, I'll have jobs where project managers will just cut your scope to save fees. And then they'll ring up again later, oh, we need that. And you say, well, okay, you got to pay. What? That should be included. Well, no, not with the project manager that was fired before you. He cut all that out of my scope. So, yeah, that's the problem. And here it comes, adequate documentation for performance solution as well. I mean, the problem is performance solutions are a fantastic feature in our building code where you can have, rather than a prescriptive solution, a solution that can adapt and be performance-based. Often, I think it's used as someone buggered something up in construction, then they performance solution, get someone to write a document to get out of having to make changes, to get out of having to make it compliant. So it's an innovative thing that can be abused. But and then it comes back to the certifier's role in enforcement. But then the problem is there's conflict of interest with the relationships under the way these buildings are procured. And I'll link to, I'm just checking the time here, 23 minutes, 56. I'll link to my video on the previous one I did about Opal Tower and Design and Construct, because I suggest you watch that. A lot of people need to look at the difference between a Design and Construct procured building, which it will be, I would guarantee, most development buildings, and a traditional procurement process, because there is a big difference. And builders will go, oh, it's cost more, it costs more. Yeah, because you're doing it right. You're doing the paperwork and you're spending the time to check. You're not cutting corners, which is frustrating. Approval of documentation throughout the construction process. Independent third-party reviews. Mandatory inspections. Can you believe that these don't exist in New South Wales? Or the problem is people will do inspections and it's just pretty much a walkthrough with an iPhone. And I've heard of this. Certifiers are doing an inspection on the Rio where the builder's just pointing the iPhone at it over airtime, FaceTime. Yeah, exactly. You know, inspection and certification of fire safety installations. Yeah, I mean, it's great designing it, but if you don't install it properly, it doesn't matter. It won't work. A building manual for commercial buildings. Yeah, that needs to get on the blockchain. I need to figure out how to do that and turn that into a product. If anyone is a crypto expert, let me know, because I think there could be a market for that. Building product safety. Well, yeah, I want to do a video on looking at the history of that, just the examples, breaking that down of all the dodgy stuff that's happened here in Australia. And as an architect, it's a problem because we take a lot of risk. Dictionary terminology. Maybe I should do that into a website. Maybe that's, I'm all of these things here. These are bugger ups in New South Wales, but they're all commercial opportunities, guys. You know, get your dollar signs happening. Then they've got implementation and plans. You know, I mean, come on, it's government. It's been years and it hasn't happened. The problem is what we're seeing here in Opal, in Mascot, and La Crosse in Spencer Street, is the result of something that happened years ago. Just imagine what's happening now. Times are getting tough. When I start getting phone calls from randoms for work and I've got a tiny firm, or bombarded with emails for people trying to push stuff, it gets quiet. What happens when it gets quiet? People cut corners, or do people improve quality? Guys, let me know what you think. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Ding the bell to see my daily updates. And please send in photos of dodgy construction stuff, anything you can, for the 5,000 subscriber special. I don't know when I'll do it. I'm starting to get stuff in. I'll put something together. Maybe we'll do it as a live stream, and I'll do a blindfolded test of different coffee and see if I can tell the difference between Aldi and other dodgy coffees. Something like that. We'll have a bit of fun. Anyway, guys, thank you all very much for joining me tonight. Take care. See you next time.